In today's video, we're going to be taking a look here at our modeled guidance, diving into this ongoing snowstorm, major snowstorm in the Northeast. This is also basically coming in with very, very intense Arctic air at the same time as well, so there is plenty to discuss. Now, as we just take a look at these current conditions, these are pretty much current. We see that there is a storm system moving through the northwest and then also through that northeast like we were mentioning before, and your jet stream looks something like this. Pretty darn intense here for a lot of these areas, and we have this strong load here, 987, and it's going to transfer mostly closer to the coast, so we're going to see a lot of this energy shifting to these areas here. And as we just continue that on, we've already seen a lot of snowfall kind of already come down, but we can see still just this very broad low pressure here in these areas. This area in particular has been a hot spot for a lot of this low pressure outside of the main low here, which is basically circled around that area here. It's a very interesting dynamic, but what ends up happening because of all of these different things is it sticks around for a very long time. That's what we see a lot of, and we also see this very strong low here across a lot of the Rockies here into the southwest. We're just seeing plenty of this activity here. Definitely a very interesting scenario, and as you can see, by the time we are reaching Thursday into Friday here, 998 millibar low pressure center, we see snowfall up here in the Great Lakes, and also down here for the plains, we're seeing plenty of this snowfall. And we're seeing probably severe weather underneath here. I think as we take a look at things about this point, it appears like anywhere from just to the west of Dallas-Fort Worth and through this pocket here is going to be your area to watch for that severe weather primarily. As we watch this intensify, this seems to be the hotspot on the models. And then after this point, once we're reaching into Friday, primarily, what we're going to see is a lot of these deeper south areas seeing it. So coastal Texas into Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, those areas in particular seem to be of concern. And then even up and down the southeast, by the time we're taking a look at about Friday into Saturday overnight, we're going to see some activity located in these areas: Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, up into Virginia, even the Delmarva into New Jersey. All of these areas are going to be pretty much of concern here. Now, as we reach into further into Saturday, and look, we have a big warm-up Friday, by the way. I forgot to mention that in this video at least. We have this jet stream doing like this, and this is going to be an extremely warm day. Friday and Saturday are going to look like this, for depending on where you're at, basically. But we have this swinging cold front, very intense cold front, and I think this is why we're seeing such an intense severe weather event in between these two air masses. So anywhere in here, we're watching for that very intense severe weather. And we see this basically by the time we're reaching Saturday, very early Saturday, we're going to see this cold front coming through, as you can see. It's still located over some of these areas. But by Saturday evening, we're going to see things rapidly cooling in the east, and we're actually left with some very, very cold air. That is until Tuesday, where we see a bit of a rising motion in a lot of these areas, and this storm system moving up like this will actually be able to lift off some of that warmth. And as you can see along that eastern seaboard here, things should be warming in these areas in particular. But we can see that to the west of that low, we see cold air damming taking place. And what I mean by this is we see a motion like this, and it's able to pull cold down to the west, and we see rising air to the east of it. So that's why we see a lot of warming taking place along that southeast coast, because it's rising up, and then all behind it is this motion of pulling, so that cold air is able to kind of join in with that. We see a lot of this Arctic air moving into these areas, so that is kind of cold damming with this low. What we see happen is a pretty major snowstorm again there, and a very similar one actually at that for the northeast mid-Atlantic here. That's going to be for Tuesday, Wednesday, even into a little bit of Thursday there, the 21st, 22nd, 23rd. And then look what we're left with here, another very intense trough in the west and a interesting ridge in the east here, something like this taking place here. It seems to be the main idea. Definitely a very, very intense look. Now, as we take a look at that total precipitation here, as you can see, we have plenty of activity here in the east. There's no surprise there, as there's going to be multiple major storms moving through. So we see these storms rising up through these areas, and that is going to lead towards above average precipitation for the most part over the next 10 days. And then for this area out west in particular, we have plenty of storms moving onshore as well, and these eventually move down and actually join with this flow and join up with that. So there is a whole lot going on, mostly the flow doing this, though, in general, with those storms, as you can see. So the driest areas are going to be to the north here, where we see these storms dip below. For the most part, that seems to be the main look. Now, total snowfall, there's no surprise here in the Northeast. Is going to look absolutely massive because we have the rest of storm number 1. And then now this European model shows snowstorm number 2 in the long range. So certainly a very, very interesting look with 2 major snowstorms that's going to lead towards major amounts of snowfall in these areas in general. Rockies and Cascades get their fair share of snow as well. You know, well into the multiple feet of snowfall range is what I would say. So this is definitely looking like very, very large amounts of that snowfall. Let's quickly take a look at the New England area here, because again, over the course of 2 snowstorms, we get, 2 feet easily, 2 to 3 feet for a lot of the Catskills, Finger Lake region, your Adirondacks there, but the Green Mountains into the Berkshires, we're looking at maybe 40, 50 inches if we get both of these storms to happen this way. Same story here through the White Mountains down through into a lot of your areas near Keene, south of Manchester there, Nashua as well. We're seeing areas in here, and then northern central Massachusetts. These areas tend to typically just do very, very well in snowstorms, actually, for New England. It's these 2 areas here in these coastal low scenarios that just do the best time and time again, especially when the low is well enough to the south here. Anywhere in here is going to cause mixing, obviously. I just realized that looks like a face. That's kind of funny. But we can see that there's a lot of mixing issues happening near the coast. This means your low is going to be relatively close, or a lot of the low pressure at least is going to be relatively close here to the coast at different points, hanging out in this area here. And this just sets these areas up perfectly for plenty of snowfall in the upcoming pattern. Now, as we take a look at our GFS model, I want to just see if there's any differences here. We see major snowstorm number 1 kind of coming to an end. We get this major storm here, again, severe weather underneath, looking likely as there's a very strong low right here. Warm front dynamic, cold front dynamic. It's a classic storm, okay? That's what I'm trying to get at. We get that brief warm up and then a very strong cool down. We also get a rising storm here, but what happens is it's a bit further east, whereas the European model had it onshore. And then kind of transferring and then heading up the coast here. What we see from this GFS model is it kind of just slides off the coast and tries to move up. And this would create a much colder and snowier scenario for a few folks, as you can see, in the deeper south areas, as it kind of just slides off with just enough cold air onshore to cause a minor snowstorm there for North Carolina, Virginia, some areas in there. Very interesting. I cannot even imagine that being in Virginia right now because it is just so springy. Spring has sprung in these areas, I guess is how you would put it. Then we get a couple of major snowstorms, and really the interesting thing here to me is already we're reaching close to April 1st on this GFS model, and we still see a lot of pressure of Arctic air from the north. This has just been a very wintry March and a very spring-like January and February. I think the seasons are confused just as much as we are. Let's take a look at the Mid-Atlantic here. I want to get a picture of what that snowstorm would look like. So a lot of this, the GFS model struggles with, I want to say, it probably a lot more sleet than anything in these areas. Take that with a grain of salt for sure. In these more coastal areas where the low is able to slide off and start to really dam some cold air down this east coast, we get maybe a dusting to an inch or 2. I think it's a lot more realistic, an inch or 2 in these areas, even though it's highly unusual. I think an inch or 2, if that type of scenario played out, would be the much, much more realistic scenario, to say the least. That is just my opinion, though, and I think the thing I love about weather the most is that, the impossible becomes possible oftentimes. The improbable certainly does, and you can never really know exactly what's going to happen. I love how unpredictable the weather is, and I love trying to predict it as hard as that is. Now, I want to thank you guys for watching this video. I particularly enjoyed making this video. This one stood out to me as a very fun one to make. I don't know why. But I guess maybe I'm just having a great day. So I hope you guys have a great day as well. Please subscribe, as we do upload every single day. We're going to continue through with this upcoming pattern with you guys and just try to kind of nail down everything here, all the details. You can also hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Like the video if you enjoyed it, leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys in the next video.